This plane didn't have the highest speed, the biggest range, and didn't feature any exceptional technological marvels. In fact, it was considered kind of obsolete when the US entered the war. Despite all these, it became the most effective US dive bomber, sank more Japanese ships than any other Allied bomber, and had a great part in every big battle on the Pacific between 1941 and 1944. So let's see how this plane became the main US carrier-based dive bomber in World War II. The Navy was experimenting with dive bombing way before World War II, starting just after the First World War. Realizing that carrier-based planes cannot deliver the amount of bombs as the land-based ones, they had to be sure their ordnance is delivered accurately, and for that dive bombing was the answer, where the pilot can keep the target in sight. But early experiments showed problems with this kind of approach, as many times the bombs hit the propellers of the planes. Luckily, with the introduction of the bomb fork, which swung the bomb away from the aircraft, this problem was eliminated, and by the 1930s, the dive bombing was officially included in the Navy's tactics. In 1934, a new competition was announced for a new carrier-based aircraft, and several manufacturers entered their design. The competition asked for both biplane and monoplane designs. The Brewster XSBA-1, the Curtiss XSBC-3, the Great Lakes XB-2G-1, the Grumman XSBF-1, the Northrop XBT-1, and Vought XSBU-21 all entered. You might notice I didn't mention Douglas. That is because the Dauntless originally started its life as the Northrop XBT-1. The Vought, Brewster and Northrop designs were chosen for further development. The Brewster design became the SBN-1 later, the Vought the SB-2U Vindicator, and of course the Northrop design would become the Dauntless. The Northrop BT-1 was equipped with an 825 horsepower engine, and featured a landing gear setup which could be retracted inside the bulges under the wings. The Navy liked the design and ordered 54 BT-1 production models. However, it quickly became apparent that the plane is not perfect. It had some stability problems and it was underpowered, so Northrop started working on an improved version. The XBT-2 model featured a more powerful 1000 horsepower Wright engine, a now fully retractable landing gear, and a modified rudder which fixed the instability. During development of the XBT-2, Douglas took over Northrop and the project, and the plane was renamed XSBD-1, Experimental Scout Bomber Douglas 1. This plane was very similar to the production SBD-1, but for instance the tail was different. It was missing the distinctive tail fin we see on the production SBDs. The Navy and the Marine Corps both placed orders for the upgraded plane in 1939, which was now named Dauntless. The SBD-1 was not considered fully combat ready though, as the Navy found the fuel capacity too small. This was critical on a carrier-based aircraft, which might need to spend time over the sea to find its carrier, forming up and landing on it. Douglas reacted quickly, and beginning with the 58 production model, they addressed the problem by installing larger fuel tanks in the wings, increasing the fuel capacity to 310 gallons and the range to 1,200 miles. The first 57 aircraft was sent to the Marines, who operated from land-based airfields, and thus the Marine Corps was the first to receive the SBDs in 1940, followed by the Navy in early 1941, who received the upgraded SBD-2 models. The distinctive features of the Dauntless, the big perforated flaps and dive brakes, were actually a solution to a problem on the plane, as originally it suffered from a serious tail buffeting. The lead designer at Heinemann took a ride in the backseat of one of the planes to evaluate the problem, and he said seeing it in person scared the hell out of him. After wind tunnel testings at NACA, it was suggested the flaps should be perforated to break up the airwave interfering with the tail. 318 holes were drilled in the flaps, which completely solved the problem. The plane used the Wright R1820-32 radial air-cooled engines, producing 1000 horsepower. it could reach a maximum speed of 256 miles an hour at 16,000 feet, and had a cruise speed of 185 miles an hour. The maximum range was 1,225 miles, and the service ceiling 27,260 feet. The plane's armament consisted of 2 forward-firing 50 caliber machine guns and 1 30 caliber machine gun in the rear. It could carry a 1,000-pound bomb under the fuselage and 200-pound bombs under the wings. The XBT-2 was the original prototype. It was renamed XSBD-1 when Douglas took over the project. It was followed by the SBD-1, the early production variant, with only 210 gallons of fuel capacity, used by the Marine Corps from late 1940. It was quickly replaced by the SBD-2 with increased fuel capacity. This was the first version accepted by the Navy. The SBD-3 was a new version delivered from March 1941. It featured self-sealing fuel tanks, crew armor, and armored windscreen. After the Battle of Coral Sea, double 30 caliber machine guns were installed to the rear to increase firepower. To balance out the added weight from the new modifications, the flotation device installed on earlier models was dropped. The SBD-4 model, introduced late 1942, featured a new 24-volt electric system allowing the installation of radar. This was the slowest version of all, with just 245 miles an hour top speed. It was followed by the SBD-5 in early 1943, which introduced a new 1,200 horsepower engine and increased ammunition supply. It also featured a new heated windscreen to get rid of the fogging that occurred many times. This was the most produced variant, with 2,965 units built. The final version of the plane, the SBD-6, featured an even more powerful 1,350 horsepower engine, which raised the top speed to 262 miles an hour, but only 450 were built as production ceased in 1944. After that, the Dauntless was replaced by the SB-2C Helldiver. The Army Air Force variant of the Dauntless, the A-24 Banshee, was similar to the Navy version, but without a landing hook and featured a larger tailwheel. The SBD first saw action on December 7, 1941, when the Japanese forces attacked Pearl Harbor. Though the Marine SBDs stationed at Pearl were destroyed on the ground, another 18 Dauntless arrived back to Hawaii from Wake Island just when the Japanese attacked. 7 of them were shot down, but they claimed 2 Japanese planes in return. The first major combat use came in the Battle of the Coral Sea, where the SBDs were responsible for the sinking of a Japanese carrier and damaging another. But their most important fight came not long after, in the Battle of Midway, the battle that turned the tide on the Pacific. The US Navy had the upper hand in this battle, as they managed to crack the Japanese code. And also, unknown to the Japanese, the damaged but quickly repaired Yorktown joined Enterprise and Hornet in this battle, while the Japanese thought it was sunk at Coral Sea. Altogether, they carried 112 SBDs. In this battle, the SBDs managed to sink and heavily damage all 4 Japanese carriers. They could approach and attack their targets easily, as the Japanese fighter defense was drawn down by the TBD torpedo bombers, which arrived earlier. This left the Japanese fleet open to the SBDs arriving at higher altitude. 47 SBDs scored 39 bomb hits on 3 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, which had their aircrafts all on the decks in the middle of the rearming process. All 3 carriers were fatally wounded and out of the fight. The 4th Japanese carrier, Hiryu, was located later in the day and was also sunk by the Dauntlesses. The SBDs also played a big part in the battle for Guadalcanal, where both land and carrier-based planes attacked Japanese shipping. They also participated in the European theater, though not to the same extent as on the Pacific. In November 1942, they flew from USS Ranger to attack targets in North Africa during Operation Torch. They were responsible for the sinking of the French battleship Jean Bart. The Dauntless was supposed to be replaced by the Helldiver beginning 1943, but the new plane was not ready, so the SBDs were kept in service up until 1944. They were participating in the Battle of the Philippine Sea as well, which was their last major operation flying from carriers. Submarine squadrons still flew SBDs until the end of the war. They were also used by the Royal New Zealand Air Force and the Free French forces in Europe. The French Air Force still used them after World War II in the Indochina War in 1947. A total of 5,936 SBDs were built during the war, and the last of them rolled out of the assembly line on 21st of July 1944. During the war, they managed to sink 6 carriers, 14 cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 15 transport ships, and despite their lack of speed, they did formidably against the Japanese planes as well. The Dauntless was one of the most important aircraft in the Pacific. It helped to turn the course of the war in the Battle of Midway, and sank more ships than any other bomber. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.